Hey everyone, welcome to Life Reflections. Today I'm sharing a life story that might just hit home for you. If you enjoy it, give it a thumbs up, drop a comment with your thoughts, and hit that subscribe button to join me for more moments that matter. Let's dive in.
They say weddings bring families together. But at my sister's wedding, everything fell apart, and it all started with a joke at my expense. There I was, sitting at the perfectly polished table, pretending not to notice the sideways glances, pretending the smile on my face wasn't cracking. Chloe, the picture-perfect bride, was holding the microphone like she owned the night, and maybe she did. Until she didn't. "Let's all give it up for Madison," she said, voice sugary sweet but dripping with something crueler underneath. Still rocking that single mom look, kinda like a clearance sale Carrie Bradshaw. The laughter cut sharper than any knife. Even my father chuckled into his drink, muttering something about knockoff Gucci. I froze, cheeks burning, wondering if my 9-year-old son Caleb could feel the humiliation radiating off me. One look at his wide, confused eyes, and I knew he could. I wanted to disappear. But before I could even push back my chair, Caleb was already standing, marching toward the stage, straight into the spotlight. At first, I thought maybe he was lost. Maybe he was just looking for the bathroom. Maybe I was still dreaming this whole nightmare. But then, he grabbed the microphone with both hands, cleared his tiny throat, and said something that would blow the whole night apart. They say children are mirrors, they reflect everything we show them, everything we are, everything we try so desperately to hide. But no one ever tells you that sometimes, they become your voice when yours is buried under years of shame, silence, and second-guessing. The night my son grabbed a microphone in front of 127 guests at the most Instagrammable wedding of the decade, I wasn't proud. I was terrified. Not of what he'd say, but of the truth he might speak. It was supposed to be a perfect evening. The chandeliers sparkled like diamonds, soft jazz floated through the air, and every detail, down to the placement of gold-rimmed chargers and blush-tone peonies, was curated to look effortless. But no amount of luxury can cover the stench of cruelty. And no amount of staged perfection can stop a 9-year-old from telling the truth. I wasn't supposed to be the center of attention that night. I didn't want to be. I had spent most of the reception trying to disappear. I'd RSVP'd out of obligation, not excitement. My dress was one I bought on final clearance and still wasn't sure fit me right. My makeup barely masked the dark circles under my eyes. And while other women showed up with husbands on their arms and designer labels on their backs, I arrived with a wrinkled invitation and a wriggly kid who refused to stop humming the Minecraft soundtrack. I didn't belong there. But I showed up anyway, for my sister. Chloe. The golden child. The one with a smile that could sell anything and a voice that never quite said what it meant. She was stunning that night, I'll give her that. All ice blonde hair and diamonds, laughing in a way that sounded too bright and felt too sharp. And then, in the middle of her welcome speech, when the champagne had just started to fizz and the room leaned in with warm grins, she turned toward me and said the words that pulled the pin from everything. And let's not forget my big sister Madison, showing us all how to do motherhood solo, one clearance sale outfit at a time. The laughter was immediate. Ugly. Sharp. I heard someone gasp laugh behind me. My dad, of course, chuckled too loudly and added, "Knock off Carrie Bradshaw, am I right?" And just like that, I was 16 again, hiding in a bathroom stall at prom, listening to other girls talk about my thrift store shoes. I laughed. Or at least, I think I did. I made the sound people make when they're pretending they didn't just have their skin peeled back in public. Next to me, my son, Caleb, looked up. His brows furrowed. "Why are they laughing at you, Mom?" he asked, his voice a whisper and a dagger all at once. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because how do you explain to a child that sometimes the people who claim to love you the most will laugh the loudest when you're bleeding? I looked down, tried to collect myself, reached for my water glass but couldn't steady my hand. The glass trembled. My pride cracked. And my voice, gone. That's when Caleb stood up. At first, I didn't even notice. I was still stuck in my head, playing the words over again. But then I heard the scrape of a chair. The tiny thud of patent leather shoes against the glossy ballroom floor. And I looked up. Just in time to see my 9-year-old son walking toward the stage. My heart stopped. I thought maybe he was confused. Maybe he needed the bathroom. Maybe he was just going to ask Chloe for a hug or a piece of cake or... God, please let it be anything else. He didn't look back at me. Not once. He just kept walking. Straight into the spotlight. And the world, as I knew it, tilted. We always think we'll have time to prepare for moments like that. That we'll have a warning. That we'll get to choose when we're exposed. But sometimes, it takes a child to rip the curtain down. And in that glittering room, filled with fake laughs, clinking glasses, and carefully crafted lies, my son became the loudest truth. He stood in front of that microphone like he was born to hold it. His little hands wrapped around the stand. His knees slightly bent, like he was grounding himself. And with a steady, unshaken voice, he said, "I know something about the bride." The crowd stilled. Chloe turned her head sharply. The DJ's music faded like it suddenly remembered it wasn't welcome. "She doesn't love my uncle," Caleb continued. "She just wants his money. She said so to her friend before the wedding. And she said," he looked around, his voice unwavering, "that people like my mom don't belong in her family." You could have heard a wine glass shatter in the silence that followed. My body was frozen. My soul on fire. And in that moment, that exact moment, I realized something terrifying and beautiful. My son didn't need me to protect him anymore. He was protecting me. The rest of the night unraveled like a movie in slow motion. Faces dropped. Secrets spilled. Someone in the back of the room, Jenna, one of Chloe's old friends, stood up and confirmed everything Caleb said. The groom, Jordan, staggered from the stage, eyes hollow. "Chloe?" She didn't scream. She didn't sob. She left. Stormed out of her perfect wedding, heels clicking like gunshots on the marble tile. But the best part? No one followed her. People clapped. For Caleb. Not loud or wild. But slow. Steady. Real. And me? I cried into my napkin like my soul had been cracked open and filled with sunlight. Because my son, my sweet, observant, brave little boy, had just reminded me who I was. Not a joke. Not a burden. Not an embarrassment. But a mother worth defending. I wasn't supposed to be there. I knew at the moment the ivory invitation arrived, sealed with gold foil and faux affection. The envelope felt heavier than it should have, probably because it carried the weight of every insecurity I'd buried. I stared at it for days before opening it. I mean, what was I supposed to do? Jump for joy at the chance to sit through a 6-hour performance of my sister's fairy tale life while trying to make my son eat a mini quiche without spilling on his only nice shirt? But I went. God help me, I went. Because that's what older sisters do, right? Even when they're forgotten. Even when they're insulted behind closed doors. Even when no one asks how they're holding up as a single mom juggling 2 jobs, a mortgage, and a 9-year-old who still can't fall asleep without someone lying beside him. I said yes because I wanted to be bigger than my pain. Because I thought maybe, just maybe, this time, things would be different. They weren't. Chloe and I hadn't been close in years. Not since she got the promotion, the townhouse, the ring. Not since she started treating every family gathering like a PR appearance and me like the sad press release she had to edit out. We grew up in the same house, sure. But you wouldn't know it now. She became the glossy success story. I became the oops. My parents adored her. Her Instagram perfect life, her filtered happiness, her fiancé Jordan, a tax attorney with a Tesla and a perfectly pressed smile. And me? I showed up to Thanksgiving one year with Caleb and a store-brand pumpkin pie. She showed up with matching monogrammed place cards for everyone, including our parents' dog. You get the picture. But for Caleb, I tried to keep things civil. When the wedding invitation came, he was so excited. Are we going to a real wedding, Mom? Like with music and cake and tuxedos? I faked a smile. We are, baby. Aunt Chloe's getting married. I didn't say what I was really thinking. That I'd rather walk barefoot over Legos than sit through 6 hours of side eyes and smug speeches. But Caleb, he didn't know all that. To him, Chloe was still the aunt who gave him Lego sets on Christmas. The one who took selfies with him using dog filters and let him sneak extra whipped cream on his cocoa. He didn't see the microaggressions. He didn't hear the "wow, still doing that whole mom on her own thing" comments. He didn't feel the invisible gap between us, the one that widened every year since the day I chose to keep my baby and raise him alone. So I zipped up the dress that barely fit. I curled my hair, swiped on some mascara. And I put on my armor, one layer of silent resilience at a time. The venue was breathtaking, of course. A country estate just outside the city. Lush green lawns manicured like magazine covers. Servers in crisp black uniforms weaving through the crowd offering flutes of Prosecco and shrimp spoons that looked like they belonged in a food blog more than in anyone's actual mouth. Everyone looked like they'd been styled by professionals. I looked like I'd styled myself in the parking lot. But I smiled. I smiled until my cheeks ached. I nodded at people who didn't remember my name. I shook hands with people who looked at me like I was part of the catering team. Chloe didn't greet me at the door. She was too busy getting candid photos taken in the garden. My mom, Brenda, gave me a tight-lipped hug that barely grazed my shoulder and said, "Oh good, you made it. Caleb's growing, huh? Maybe you should think about cutting his hair soon." Then she walked off, laughing with Chloe's future mother-in-law like she hadn't just insulted both of us. I took Caleb by the hand and found our table, tucked in the corner, of course. Right by the kitchen doors. Next to some third cousins I hadn't seen since they were in diapers. Perfect. Caleb was beaming. "This place looks like a movie, Mom." And he was right. It did. Too bad I already knew the ending. During the ceremony, I watched Chloe glide down the aisle like the star of her own romantic drama. She looked stunning, yes. But she also looked rehearsed. Like every smile, every tear, every dramatic pause had been planned weeks in advance. And Jordan? He looked happy. Or at least, like he was trying very hard to look happy. As they exchanged vows under a flower-drenched arch, I felt a strange tug in my chest, not jealousy, not exactly. More like grief. For the version of me that used to dream of this. The version of me that once believed love was simple. That family would always protect you. That showing up with your whole heart was enough. Spoiler, it isn't. After the ceremony came the cocktail hour, and that's when the whispering started. The glances. The side conversations I wasn't quite a part of. One of Chloe's bridesmaids walked past and giggled. "Oh my God, is that Madison?" I thought she couldn't get time off from being a superhero or something. Cue laughter. Cue my smile cracking a little more. I caught Jordan looking at me once, just once, with something almost like pity. And I hated it. I didn't want pity. I wanted space. I wanted to finish my sparkling cider, keep Caleb from sliding under the dessert table, and leave with a shred of dignity. But then Chloe took the mic. The speech started sweet. Gratitude. Love. Tears in the corners of her eyes that might have been real. And then, the twist. She turned toward me, smiled that magazine cover smile, and said, I couldn't have gotten here without all of you. Especially my sister Madison, who proves every day that you can be strong, single, and still show up in something sparkly from Target. Laughter exploded. I froze. I felt Caleb turn to look at me. My mother didn't say anything. She just sipped her drink and smiled. And just like that, every effort I'd made to belong, every tiny ounce of dignity I'd pieced together that day, shattered into confetti beneath my heels. That was the moment the fairy tale cracked. That was the moment my 9-year-old stood up. Not to dance. Not to grab cake. But to say the thing no one else had the guts to say. That's the premise. A sister wedding. A family so wrapped up in image they couldn't see their own reflection. A woman, me, who walked into a lion's den expecting nothing. And a child who burned it all down, not out of anger, but out of love. What do you do when the people who are supposed to love you become the ones who humiliate you? You sit still. You bite your cheek. You fold your shame into the linen napkin on your lap and pretend it's just part of the decor. That's what I did. As Chloe stood on stage, dazzling and dangerous, using her microphone like a sword, I kept my back straight and my smile tighter. Clearance sale Carrie Bradshaw. Target sparkle. Single and still showing up. Her words landed like darts, but the real sting came from the laughter. The way the room didn't just accept the joke, it celebrated it. The way my own father leaned back in his seat, chuckling, his whiskey glass raised like a toast to my humiliation. The way no one, not one damn person, said, "That's not okay." And then, there was Caleb. He looked up at me, brown eyes wide and confused. "Why are they laughing at you, Mom?" I couldn't answer. What could I say? That some people feel taller when they push others down? That being family doesn't always mean being kind? I couldn't speak. I couldn't even swallow. My throat burned with every unshed tear, my heart pounding so hard I swore it echoed louder than the music. Then, quietly, my son slipped out of his chair. At first, I thought maybe he needed to use the restroom. Maybe he was bored. Maybe he was going to go look for more bread rolls, because he'd already devoured the ones at our table. But then he kept walking, not toward the back, not toward the buffet, but toward the stage. Time slowed. Every step he took felt like a countdown. I sat up straighter, whispered sharply, "Caleb, come back." But he didn't turn around. People started to notice. Heads turned. The DJ leaned down like he was going to guide him away, but Jordan, Chloe's groom, raised a hand and said, "Let him speak." That shut everyone up. There he stood, 9 years old, in a clip-on tie that had started to twist sideways, shirt untucked slightly from dancing, cheeks flushed with either nerves or bravery. I couldn't tell which. He reached up, grabbed the microphone with both hands, and looked out over the sea of adults. People who had ignored him all evening. People who had laughed at his mother. People who thought he was just a kid. But there was nothing small about him in that moment. He was still. He was solid. He was mine. And then he spoke. "I heard the bride say something before the wedding," he said. The room went quiet. Not just silent, still. Even the servers froze mid-step. Chloe's smile faltered. She tilted her head and cooed. "What did you hear, sweetie?" Like she could charm her way out of this. Caleb didn't flinch. "She said she doesn't love Uncle Jordan," he continued, eyes scanning the room. "She said she just wants someone who won't question her, who'll buy her a house and let her go out late without asking stuff." You could almost hear the collective inhale, like the entire ballroom had just realized they were in the middle of a scene no one could unsee. Chloe's face drained of color. "That's not true," she blurted. But her voice shook. My hands trembled under the table. "Please don't say more," I thought. "Please don't ruin your life to save mine." But he wasn't finished. She also said that once they were married, she'd make sure people like my mom don't show up anymore. Because she's embarrassing. That word hung in the air. Embarrassing. Like a curse. Like a brand. Like every cruel whisper I'd ever overheard from family members who thought I was too busy raising Caleb to hear them. And then, he looked directly at Chloe. Then at Jordan. Then at the crowd. "My mom is not embarrassing," he said, voice cracking slightly but still strong. "She's kind. She works really hard. And she never says bad things about anybody, even people who are mean to her." Then he stepped back from the mic. Just like that. No mic drop. No dramatic bow. Just the quiet power of a child who had said what no one else had the guts to say. The room exploded, but not with applause. Not yet. Just whispers. Stares. Disbelief. And then, something I didn't expect. A voice from the back. "I heard it too," someone said. It was Jenna. One of Chloe's old high school friends. She stood up, jaw clenched. "I walked into the bridal suite earlier. Chloe was talking to one of her bridesmaids. She said everything Caleb just repeated, word for word. And just like that, the house of cards collapsed." Chloe's face twisted into something I didn't recognize, not sadness, not even guilt. Just panic. "Are you people seriously taking the word of a kid and some jealous girl who wasn't even supposed to be in the wedding?" she barked. But no one spoke up. No one came to her defense. Not even Jordan. He stood slowly. Took a step toward her. "Did you say it?" he asked. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Then opened it again. I mean, people vent. It's stressful before weddings. You say dumb stuff. It didn't mean anything. He probably misheard me. He's 9. Jordan didn't blink. And yet, he told the truth. He turned toward me, eyes softer now. Then he looked at Caleb and knelt down. "Hey buddy," he said gently. "Thank you. I wish someone had spoken up sooner." That moment, that single moment, changed everything. Not just the wedding. Not just the family. But me. Because in that split second, I saw the shift. I saw the woman who'd been invisible to this family finally seen, not through her own voice, but through the voice she'd raised. My son didn't just defend me. He declared me worthy. To a room that never once made me feel like I was. Chloe stormed out 10 minutes later. Shoes in hand. Makeup streaked. Shouting something about betrayal and ungratefulness and ruining everything. But the only thing Caleb ruined was the lie. Chloe was still standing on the stage, but her glow was gone. Her eyes darted from face to face, searching for someone, anyone, to jump in, to laugh it off, to tell her this was all some harmless misunderstanding. But all she found were stares. Cold ones. Curious ones. Some judgmental, some shocked. But not one sympathetic. Not even from our father. He had gone very still, his fingers wrapped tightly around the base of his glass, eyes down. Jordan stood across from her like a man who had just seen the final puzzle piece slip into place, and hated the image it completed. "I asked you," he said quietly. "More than once. I asked if you were sure. If you loved me. If you were marrying me for the right reasons." Chloe opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Then, trying to reset the narrative, she took a half step forward, hand extended toward Jordan, voice syrupy sweet but thin. "Jordan, baby. He's a kid. You're really going to let a child ruin our wedding night?" "No," he said, backing away. "You did that all by yourself." The room let out a collective exhale. Caleb had returned to our table, sitting next to me, small and quiet now. I placed my arm around him, pulling him into my side. My hand was still trembling. Not from fear anymore. From release. From everything I had held in for years finally being seen. "This is insane," Chloe snapped, trying to muster some strength. "You all know me. You know I joke. I'm sarcastic. I don't mean half the stuff I say. This is just my sense of humor. Humor is only funny when everyone's laughing," a voice said. Everyone turned. It was my father. He stood slowly, like someone rising from a long, uncomfortable sleep. He cleared his throat, set his glass down. "And tonight, I didn't laugh." Chloe looked like she'd been slapped. "Oh, now you're turning on me too?" she spat. "You're defending her?" She pointed at me like I was a piece of gum stuck under a chair. The daughter who dropped out of school, got pregnant at 21, and moved into a one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat? The one who made nothing of herself while I built a life worth showing off? That was it. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was final. Like something in the room had broken, and this time, no one was rushing to fix it. Jordan shook his head. "I think we're done here." He didn't shout. He didn't cry. He just turned his back on the woman he was supposed to marry and walked off the stage. Chloe stood there, stunned, as the DJ quietly turned off her mic and lowered the music even more. She looked around again. One last time. "You're all hypocrites," she hissed. "I hope you enjoy this little circus." Then she yanked off her veil, kicked off her heels, and stormed out, alone. The doors slammed shut behind her. For a moment, no one moved. Then Jenna, the bridesmaid who had backed Caleb up, slowly clapped her hands together. Once. Twice. 3 times. And then more joined in. The applause started small. Tentative. Almost unsure. But then it built. It grew. And before I knew it, the entire room was applauding. Not for Chloe. Not for Jordan. Not for the disaster they had all just witnessed. They were clapping for the truth. And somehow, impossibly, for us. I sat there, stunned. One hand over my mouth. One arm around my son. Eyes welling with tears I didn't even realize I had left to cry. Caleb leaned into me and whispered, "Did I do something bad, Mom?" I shook my head, smiling through the tears. "No, baby. You did something brave. And I meant it." I had spent years shrinking myself, folding into corners at family dinners, letting the world believe I was less just because my path looked different. But in a matter of seconds, Caleb had ripped the curtain off that lie. And he had done it without yelling, without hate, without cruelty. He had done it with honesty. With the kind of clarity only children are bold enough to carry. Jordan returned about 10 minutes later, no longer wearing his tuxedo jacket, sleeves rolled to his elbows, tie loosened. He walked over to our table. "Madison," he said, looking directly at me, "I don't know what to say. But I want to say thank you. And thank Caleb. For showing me something I needed to see before I made a huge mistake." He turned to my son. "You're a good man, Caleb. You told the truth when the rest of us stayed quiet. That's rare. And it's powerful." Caleb nodded, solemn like an old soul. Then Jordan added, "If it's all right with you too, I'd like to join you for dessert. I could use a seat at the honest table." We ate cake. Not wedding cake, Chloe had taken that with her, in a fit of rage, I'd later learn. Instead, the venue brought out extra tiramisu from the kitchen. It was better anyway. People began drifting over to our table. One by one. Quietly. Some apologized. Some said nothing, just offered a nod or a hand on my shoulder. Some bent down to talk to Caleb, thanking him for being brave, for speaking up, for reminding them what real strength looks like. It was surreal. For years, I had been invisible. And now, somehow, in the aftermath of my humiliation, I had become seen. Not because I shouted. Not because I fought. But because I raised a son who knew when something was wrong, and refused to let it slide. Hours later, when the guests began to leave and the fairy lights outside flickered softly above the empty dance floor, Jordan pulled me aside. "You ever think about what your life would have looked like if you made different choices?" he asked me. I looked back at Caleb, who was now running in circles with Jenna's daughter near the fountain. Their laughter echoed like music. All the time, I admitted. But tonight, I'm really proud of the choices I made. Jordan smiled. Me too. That night, as I tucked Caleb into bed, he looked up at me sleepily and said, "Do you think Aunt Chloe's still mad?" I chuckled. "Probably." He paused, then whispered, "I didn't want to make her sad. I just didn't want them to think bad things about you." I kissed his forehead. "You didn't make her sad, honey. You just told the truth. What she does with it, that's her choice." He nodded. "I'm glad I said it." "Me too, baby. Me too." The wedding ended in a way no one expected. No bouquet toss, no couple's last dance, no romantic sparkler exit. Just reality. Just raw, unedited truth hanging in the air like smoke after a fire. People filtered out slowly. Quietly. Some guests hugged me on the way out. Others gave that soft, apologetic smile people offer when they've just witnessed something deeply human and uncomfortable. A few stayed to help me gather up Caleb's napkin origami, his sketch of a Minecraft creeper on the back of the menu, and the one uneaten macaron he was saving for later. Even Jordan helped us load our coats into the car. But as the parking lot emptied and the fairy lights above the venue flickered one last time, it was just me and Caleb again, in our dented gray Honda Civic, sitting in silence. I looked at him in the rearview mirror. His cheeks were flushed, tie undone, hair sweaty and wild from playing tag with Jenna's daughter. But his eyes were calm. Like he had made peace with the storm he'd started. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "Are you?" That one hit me harder than anything anyone said at that wedding. Because I didn't know. I hadn't asked myself that question in years. Most days I was just trying to function, to remember to set the alarm, to sign the permission slips, to keep the lights on. There was never time to ask, "Am I okay?" But now something had shifted. And not just in the way people saw me, but in the way I saw myself. "I think I am," I whispered. And for the first time in a long time, it was true. I carried that moment with me for days. The image of Caleb standing there, small but mighty, speaking words that silenced a ballroom, cracked a wedding in half, and realigned my heart in a way I didn't know I needed. It stayed with me when I opened the fridge to find nothing but expired yogurt and applesauce pouches. It stayed with me when I helped him with fractions at the kitchen table that week. It even stayed with me when I got a text from my mother, Brenda. "Hope you're doing well. Things got out of hand. You know how Chloe is." No apology. No reflection. Just distance wrapped in vague politeness. I didn't respond. And for the first time in my life, I didn't need to. Because I realized something. I had been waiting my entire life for people like her to validate me. To say you matter. To say you're enough. And all along, the only voice that ever really needed to say those words had been mine. But sometimes it takes the voice of someone you raised, someone who learned truth from you, to say it first, before you remember how. A few days after the wedding, Jordan called. We talked for almost 2 hours. Not about Chloe, not much anyway. mostly about childhood and pressure and how easy it is to get lost in pretending. He told me he was going to take time off. Not to process, that word was too sanitized for what he was doing. He said, "I don't want to keep curating a life. I want to build a real one." And I got that. I really got that. We promised to stay in touch. Not romantically, there was no subtext, no flirtation. Just two people who had survived something sharp and public and life-altering. Two people who knew that pain isn't what defines you. It's how you walk forward through it. One evening, about a week after the wedding, I came home late from work. Caleb had fallen asleep on the couch, still in his school clothes, holding his sketchbook. I gently pulled the blanket over him and noticed the page he had open. It wasn't Minecraft this time. It was a picture of me, standing tall, wearing a cape, and above my head, in his 9-year-old handwriting, "Supermom. Not embarrassing. Brave." I sat down and cried. Not from sadness, but from relief. From healing. From finally believing the thing I had tried to convince myself of for years. That I was never the joke. Never the failure. Never the discount version. I was the one who kept going when it would have been easier to give up. I was the one who raised a boy who could recognize injustice and stand up to it in front of 127 adults. I was the one who taught him to be honest, and somehow, in the process, reminded myself how to be whole again. You see, when you become a mother, especially a single mother, the world tries to shrink you. They slap labels on you: irresponsible, pitiful, weak. They reduce your worth to your relationship status, your paycheck, your outfit, your weight. They expect you to apologize for every day you show up looking tired, as if exhaustion wasn't proof of your love. But Caleb never saw me that way. To him, I wasn't the woman who didn't make it. I was the woman who made everything out of nothing. I was the bedtime storyteller, the boo-boo healer, the late-night grilled cheese chef, the slayer of closet monsters. I was the whole damn superhero team rolled into one. And at that wedding, when I couldn't find my voice, he used his. He lit a match. He burned the lies down. And he handed me back the truth, still warm and glowing. That moment will live in my memory forever, not just because it exposed Chloe, or because it brought the fairy tale crashing down, but because it reminded me. I never needed to be perfect. I just needed to be real. And I never needed everyone to believe in me. I just needed one person who did. Turns out, that person wore a clip-on tie, still couldn't tie his shoes quite right, and once asked if mashed potatoes could be a breakfast food. He was also the bravest soul in the room. And he called me brave first. There's this quiet lie we tell ourselves. That if we just keep our heads down, if we stay polite, if we don't make waves, somehow life will reward us. That the people who overlook us will come around. That the ones who belittle us will see the error of their ways. That family will always come through, eventually. But that's not always how it works. Sometimes, the people you expect to protect you are the first ones to cut you down. Sometimes, the ones you love most laugh while you bleed. And sometimes, the only person willing to tell the truth is a kid in a clip-on tie who still eats gummy bears with his spaghetti. That night, I learned something I'll never forget. The truth doesn't have to be loud to be powerful. It just has to be brave. It took a 9-year-old to show a room full of adults what courage looks like. To stand tall when it would have been easier to stay quiet. To speak up, not for himself, but for someone he loved. And that changed everything. It shifted the way people saw me. More importantly, it shifted the way I saw myself. Because for so long, I thought being a single mom made me less than. I thought not having a partner meant I'd failed at something essential. I believed that quiet shame was the price I had to pay for choosing to raise my son alone. But Caleb never saw it that way. He didn't see a woman who was broken. He saw a woman who kept showing up. He saw someone who fought hard and loved harder. And when it mattered most, he honored me in a way no adult in that room ever had. We teach our kids to tell the truth. But sometimes, they're the ones who teach us how to live it. That's the moral. That's the message. Your worth isn't determined by the labels others give you, but by the love you give, the truth you live, and the courage you pass on. You can spend your whole life trying to earn the respect of people who only ever loved your reflection, never your reality. Or, you can stop apologizing, stand tall, and remember. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be honest. And if you're lucky, you'll raise someone brave enough to remind you of that when you forget.
That's it for today's story on Life Reflections. I'd love to hear your take. Drop a comment below with your thoughts or a story of your own. If you enjoyed this, give a like and subscribe to keep the reflections coming. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.